Okay, so what I would like to talk about today is three things basically. So what problem does the PAS 2080 address? What are the parts of PAS 2080? Very simple summary basically. And the third thing, which hopefully will evolve in the Q&A session, is about how can PAS 2080 add value to an organization. And perhaps I'm going to talk a little bit about how it has added value to our organization. We have been recently certified as a designer in PAS 2080 in Mott MacDonald, and we believe we're the first consultant designer to do that. So I will tell you a little about that. Okay, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating a few of the things. Hopefully I'm not going to repeat too many things. Perhaps complement what Chris said. So in terms of what problem does the PAS 2080 address, this links to the last, if you like, point that Chris made. First of all, it is a carbon management standard for infrastructure. It's the first in the world standard for infrastructure management standard for reducing carbon. So that means it will hopefully, from a UK perspective, help companies to reduce carbon in the infrastructure space. Which, as we know from the infrastructure carbon review, infrastructure contributes to approximately 50%, just over 50% of the UK carbon emissions. So reducing carbon in infrastructure is paramount to for the UK to achieve the 2050 target, basically, which is 80%. The next problem that it solves, what does it relate to? It basically relates low carbon to reduce cost, which is one of the key messages in the infrastructure carbon review that Chris mentioned, which was a sister document to the infrastructure cost review. And this is quite a powerful message actually, because although you guys in the room might actually fully understand that, it took us, it was a big challenge, it took us quite a lot of persuading to do, especially at CEO type of people, very senior leaders in organizations, to actually pay a bit of importance into carbon, rather than just being another green thing, contribute to climate change reduction. Not many people believe in that. So fundamentally, PAS 2080 is one of the recommendations in the infrastructure carbon review, which is about reducing carbon, reducing cost by addressing the different problems that were found in the value chain and encouraging people working together, which I'll go a little bit more about that. And finally, one of the other things that it addresses, it basically recognizes that to reduce carbon, there are different ingredients in that. So a lot of people have come to me and they said, oh, okay, I've got a carbon tool, so I'm doing something about carbon. But actually, carbon reduction is not only about having a tool or quantifying carbon. It's very important, but as I'll explain, it's not the only ingredient. There are other ingredients apart from tools, which are technical ingredients, which are the low carbon solutions, examples that Chris mentioned, but most importantly, the behavioral issues and the cultural issues. So PAS 2080 addresses all these ingredients to show people how to reduce carbon and cost, basically, in an organization when they deliver infrastructure. Okay, Okay, this is the PAS 2080 with a guidance document, which is the less boring document. You can find the guidance document in the Green Construction Board website. And it basically, as Chris mentioned, it brings the PAS hopefully to life through real examples and through more practical recommendations for each of the infrastructure value chain players of what they need to do and at what stage, basically. Most importantly, the PAS relates to these people, basically, these members of the value chain, the asset owners, the designers, the constructors, the product material suppliers, and their shareholders, of course. And one important point here is that PAS 2080 is not only addressed at asset owners, like Anglian Water, for example. So, of course, these are the people who are the key decision makers. However, everyone has a role to play, and the PAS emphasizes the importance of the rest of the value chain to really challenge people like Chris to make things happen and drive further cost and carbon reductions. And that's why the PAS 2080, you can be certified as an asset manager, as a designer, as a constructor, as a product material supplier. And that's quite a powerful thing. The team actually thought in the steering group that was quite important, fundamental for the PAS. So let me just quickly go through the key components of PAS 2080. So first of all, PAS 2080 recognizes the importance of having a more systematic way of looking at low carbon solutions. Also, some people in the video, the introductory video, mentioned that. So if we have the infrastructure work stages to deliver a project or a program of work at the bottom, which we start by the strategy brief, concept design, construction, etc., we acknowledge that the opportunity to reduce carbon reduces. So the PAS 2080, and most importantly the guidance document, gives examples and activities, actions basically, for different people in the value chain of what they need to do to capture most of the savings, the benefits early on. So that's why we have developed the carbon reduction hierarchy, which is build nothing, build less, build clever, build efficiently. And you notice from Chris's presentation that some of the solutions were structured along those lines. So the idea is when you start with a project, and you're an asset owner, and you start involving your supply chain, what can you do to build nothing actually, and meet the same outcome? What can you do to build less by using existing assets and understanding their condition? What can you do to build clever, to use alternative materials, different technologies that reduce capital and operational carbon? And when you go to site, what can you do to build more efficiently with DFMA concepts, offsite manufacturing, etc.? The second part, the second point in PAS 2080 is that it covers all emissions. So it covers capital carbon, operational carbon, and user carbon, and gives guidance of how people can, first of all, understand what these types of emissions are and how to manage them. And it's quite interesting because this means that infrastructure value chain players can focus on the emissions that can directly control, which are the capital and operational carbon in their own assets, but also emissions that they can influence, which is the user carbon. So for example, how can you engage with your clients' customers to further reduce their user carbon, like through demand management, or in the case of transport, designing, for example, a road or a transport system that will reduce the amount of fuel that cars use, for example, depending on the slope of the road, etc., etc. And this is the meat of the PAS, basically. So what the PAS is structured around, the different clauses are structured around a carbon management process. And what this process is this one. So I mentioned earlier the work stages to deliver infrastructure, which are the green boxes: strategy, brief, concept, design, construction, etc. And the carbon management process are the dark blue boxes. So the idea is, and there is in PAS 2080 there is a clause for each of those blue boxes. And the whole essence of the PAS is basically that when you start setting targets to understand how much you want to reduce in terms of carbon and cost, when you understand your baseline, where you're starting to go from in order to reduce carbon, when you quantify your emissions in each of those stages to deliver infrastructure, and you report them and monitor them side by side with cost, then you start actually seeing different patterns and things, and you starting being challenged, further challenged to reduce this carbon and cost. And with the right leadership and governance in an organization, being an asset owner, a designer, constructor, etc., you start creating this culture of challenge, if you like, that Chris mentioned, and innovation. And the idea is that it changes the topic of the conversation, and it's about how do you look at a problem from a carbon lens, meaning a resource efficiency lens, to come up with more innovative solutions and reduce carbon and cost. So basically, this is what the PAS is about. So instead of a dry document, actually, we could have come up with this figure, and it should be fine. But this is the essence of the PAS. And the guidance document, for example, is trying to bring more practical examples for each of those clauses and each of the members of the value chain. What are the practical things people need to do? I give here a snapshot of an example of what a practitioner in an organization, a carbon practitioner, needs to do from a constructor. There are people in the leadership team. When we're talking about leadership, we're not talking about people like Chris or the CEO of a company. We're talking about different levels of leadership in your design teams, your delivery teams, your sustainability teams, the procurement department. And what are the things you need to ask yourself and your value chain members in order to challenge them? And for example, in this example of constructors, what can you ask and challenge your asset owner in order to go and offer a new product, a service that fits under these blue boxes that I showed you and along the carbon reduction hierarchy in order to prove that it can save carbon and cost. And finally, I want to spend a little bit of time about, okay, so what does this mean for you guys? And perhaps I will start by asking, by saying a few things about what that has meant for Mott MacDonald. So we have recently been certified in according to PAS 28 as a designer. We got our certification about a month ago, was it, Terry? Yeah. And as I said, we are the first consultant or designer to achieve that. Now, okay, in an ideal world, maybe somebody will say, oh, has it changed your organization completely then? And the answer is, well, not really. It's like any standard when you get certified. You don't necessarily change everything because it has taken us about 4, 5, 6 years to get to where we are at the moment in terms of leading in the carbon management scene, if you like, in UK infrastructure. But what it has done, I think there are 3 main things that have done to us. So first one, it has provided a more systematic way of cementing that position where we are at the moment after years of hard work as a designer and as a thought leader. The second one, and by having this systematic, if you like, way, it has addressed quite a lot of weaknesses and areas to improve going forward because, you know, we're not perfect, nobody's perfect. So the certification going through this whole exercise has actually highlighted quite a few things for continuous improvement, which is one of the elements of the past. The second thing, which I thought was quite interesting, was by committing as an organization from the top to get this certification, it has suddenly changed the conversations in the company. So it's basically, it's so important when anyone sees an organization, oh, we're certified as PAS 28 or we're working towards certification. It has actually focused the minds a bit on why we're doing it, because we want to be a more efficient organization. We want our clients to come to us to deliver low carbon, low cost infrastructure. We want to be the industry leader. And thirdly, when you look at the rest of the value chain, it has actually promoted this conversation, because when we have dialogues with contractors, with products, material suppliers, they know that when we tell them we have been certified, that the conversation is in terms of carbon and cost efficiency, it has raised the bar a bit. So they say, oh yeah, these guys know something perhaps that we don't. And in terms of our clients, we have seen that a lot of our existing clients, for delivering other more technical, if you like, parts of infrastructure, have suddenly keep coming to us for advice, for helping them with that journey. So it has created a little bit more opportunities, if you like, going forward. So this is, I would say, from a Mott MacDonald perspective, in the short space we have been certified. It has been a bit of a painful journey. I'm sure Chris and David will tell the same during that certification process, because you have to make sure you find all the right evidence in all the parts of the organization to prove that you have done it and you're capable of working along with the value chain to reduce carbon and cost. I think these were the 3 main messages. I hope it hasn't been too dry. And to close, to wrap up really, something more practical. This is Annex B in PAS 2080, which I personally think is one of the most useful parts in the PAS, which is basically a summary of the summary of the summary of all the clauses. So when you're starting your journey, print up Annex B, have the guidance document next to you, and just say, right, what am I? I'm an asset manager? Am I a contractor, designer? You have the color coded there. What do I need to do and when? So in the talk, we start from the strategy brief. What questions do I need to ask myself? Do I need to ask others in the value chain? Where are my gaps, in order to identify the gaps and what things you're doing well. And once you've established that, you go to the individual clauses and you say, yeah, okay. So this is from me. I hope I'm on time, yeah? Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, yeah.
Yeah, well, this is the chance, so.
This is the chance.
Why something like this could be important, the sort of opportunities it creates for you in your business. And there's always a helpless hand. I mean, I am happy to host anybody back in Angling Water to show you some of the things that have been done, how it's been done, etc., just to help you get over some of the things that you might need to do and people you need to persuade back in your own businesses. Thank you.